A few weeks ago, I set out to find the cheapest home you can actually live in across the Greater Toronto area. Not a number you see in the clickbait headlines and not a rundown place that needs $100,000 of repairs before you move in. A real home that a real person could move in this year. So I pulled the actual closed sales from this spring, threw out the rundown places and the distressed sales and lined up what was left from the lowest price to the highest. The home that landed at the very top of that list, the cheapest livable home in the GTA, looked like an obvious winner. And then I did one more step. I worked out what each home actually costs to own every month on top of the mortgage. And that one step flipped the entire list upside down because the cheapest home to buy turned out to be one of the more expensive homes to live in. There were homes that cost more to purchase but cost hundreds of dollars a month less to own. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through what I found. The cheapest livable homes in the region, the one property type almost all of them turn out to be, the exact moment my list flipped and why, the neighborhoods where cheap and strong schools actually overlap, and at the end, the real monthly numbers that tell you whether you can buy one of these right now or not. My name is Gaurav. I am a realtor in the Greater Toronto area. I work with a lot of first-time buyers, and if you ever want to talk through your own situation, there is a link in the description to book a free call with me. So let's get into what I found, starting with the homes themselves. To keep this useful, I only look at the cities close enough to Toronto to actually commute from, like Mississauga and the Halton towns in the west, Pickering, Ajax and Whitby in the east. And across all of them, the very first thing the data showed me was not a price at all, it was a pattern. More than 9 in 10 of the livable homes at this price were the exact same property type. A condo townhouse, not a cheap detached house with its own yard and not a downtown apartment in the sky. A townhome that shares a wall with its neighbors and sits under a condo corporation that charges a monthly fee. That last detail, the fee, is going to matter enormously in a minute, so hold on to it. Once I knew the type was a townhouse, the question became where the cheapest livable ones actually were. And the answer surprised me because the lowest prices were not way out on the edge. They were in Mississauga, the closest large city to Toronto. In the Applewood pocket of East Mississauga, a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom townhouse of about 1,100 square feet closed for $465,000. Move-in ready, closer to Toronto than almost anywhere else on my list for under half the region's average home price. That Applewood townhouse became my benchmark, the cheapest livable home I could comfortably point to. On purchase price alone, it was a winner. But before I tell you what happened when I added up the real cost of owning it, there's one more thing the data showed me about where your money goes furthest. Because the cheapest city to buy in is not the same as the city that gives you the most home. When you stop looking at the price and start measuring what you actually get for it, the space inside the home, then the order changes. Take Burlington and Milton. A typical livable home in Burlington sold for a little less than one in Milton, and yet in Burlington you got noticeably more space for that lower price, comfortably over 1,200 square feet. Milton cost more and handed you a smaller home. For reference, the typical townhouse across the Oakville and Milton market is benchmarked around $700,000, well above where Burlington and the eastern cities are trading. So spending more did not get you more home, and spending less did not get you less home. Price and space were pulling in the opposite directions. That is the first crack in the idea that a lower price means a worse deal, and it is about to split wide open because now we reached the part that flipped my entire list. What these homes cost to own. Here is what owning actually costs, because the purchase price is only the first of the three numbers. Every month you pay a mortgage, you pay the condo or maintenance fee, you pay the property taxes. Add those three together and you get the real cost of living in the home. So I ran that full calculation on every property at a 4% rate over 30 years, and then I resorted my whole list by what you actually pay each month instead of what you pay to buy. That Applewood townhouse, my cheapest home on the purchase price, carries a maintenance fee of around $750 a month. Once I added the mortgage and the property tax on top, its true cost to own landed almost at $3,000 a month. And on my resorted list, the cheapest home in the GTA was no longer in the first place. It fell well down the rank. A whole row of homes that cost more to buy cost less to actually live in. The home that took over the top spot was not a townhouse at all. It was a detached house in central Ajax, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, just over 1,300 square feet that closed at $500,000. $35,000 more than the Applewood townhouse on the purchase price. But it is a freehold with no condo corporation and no monthly fee. So once you add only the mortgage and the tax, its real cost to own comes in around $2,600 a month. The detached house that looked more expensive to buy is every single month the cheaper home to own. And the gap gets wider at the extreme. The most striking example I found was a 4-bedroom townhouse in Pickering that sold for $568,000 and carried a maintenance fee of over $1,200 a month. All in, that home cost more than $4,000 a month to own. Set that beside the $500,000 Ajax detached at $2,600, and you are looking at roughly $1,500 a month every month for the privilege of buying the home that cost less in the first place. That is the twist. The cheapest purchase price is very often one of the most expensive homes to actually own. So take this habit with you because it is worth real money. Never compare two homes by the purchase price alone. Compare them by full monthly cost, the mortgage plus the fee plus the tax, because that is the number you live with. A maintenance fee is not a small line item at the bottom of the listing. On many cheaper condos, it ran from a few $100s a month to well over $1,000. It builds you no equity and it climbs almost every year. It is the quiet thing that turns cheap looking home into the expensive one. When you open any listing, the first thing to check after the price is the monthly fee, because as you just saw, it can completely reorder which home is actually cheaper. But even once you've found the home that is cheapest to own, there is one more thing that decides whether it stays a good buy, and it has nothing to do with this month's payment. It is what the home is worth years from now. And one of the things that impacts this is the strength of the local schools. Now, you might not have kids and might never plan to. It does not matter here. And this is the part people miss. Whoever buys this home from you years from now could be a young family, but just as easily a newcomer settling in, or a couple planning ahead, or an investor who knows families will rent it. What they all have in common is that a strong school catchment makes the home easier to sell and hold its price up. A weak one does the opposite. So the school is not about your life, it is about the size of the crowd waiting to buy from you later. And that crowd protects the money you put in. The good news is that affordable and well-schooled genuinely overlap in these cities, and not just in one spot. In the Erin Mills pocket in Mississauga, where livable 3-bedroom townhomes were closing in the low 500s, the area feeds into Sawmill Valley Public School, which scores an 8 out of 10 on the most recent Fraser Institute report card. Over in Burlington, the Roseland neighborhood, where townhomes were closing in the mid 500s, sits in the catchment of John T. Tuck, a school that ranks near the top of the Halton list year after year, and homes in that boundary are known for holding their value. You will find the same pattern in parts of Pickering and Whitby in the east. Strong schools and reachable prices can absolutely share a postal code here. One important thing before you lean on any of it, a strong school does you no good if the home you actually buy is not actually in its catchment, and these boundaries are tighter than people expect. The line can run right down the middle of a street, so the house you want and the house next door can feed into completely different schools. So before you make an offer, look up the exact catchment for that specific address and not the neighborhood. And while you're studying that area, look at more than the school. I made a whole separate video on the things that quietly drag down a home's value and how to read a neighborhood street by street before you buy. And I will link it on the screen because the school is only one layer of getting the right area. Let me bring it back to the question that actually matters: whether any of this is within reach today. Put it all together and the genuinely cheapest livable homes to own in the GTA land between roughly $2,600 and $3,000 a month, all in, depending on the fee and your down payment. That is the real number to weigh against your budget, not the purchase price on the listing. And you do not have to guess at your own version. I built 2 free calculators for this, both linked below. One shows you how your down payment changes everything, and the other tells you the price your income can carry once the fee and taxes are added in. So take your number and compare it to what you pay for housing now. If it is close to what you already carry, you're nearer to owning than the headlines made you feel. And the next step is finding out what a lender will approve you for. If it is a stretch, the good news is that a couple of years of steady saving paired with a market that may soften a little further could put these numbers within your reach. Remember, the cheapest home in the GTA is not the lowest purchase price on the screen. It is the lowest monthly cost whose trade-offs you can live with in an area that will still have buyers when it is your turn to sell. The pattern I see again and again is buyers chasing the lowest price and missing the home that would have actually served them. The cheapest home and the right home are not always the same address, and knowing the difference is most of the job. If you're a first-time buyer in the GTA and you want to sit down virtually or in person and work out your own real monthly numbers and whether now is the right time for you, the link to book a free call with me is in the description. It's an honest conversation about what makes sense for you and nothing else. If you're not ready for that conversation yet, but you still want the full picture, I have recorded a webinar that walks you from day one to the day you get your keys, including the mistakes that cost people money along the way. And if this helped, then share it with someone trying to figure out where to buy their first home. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.